This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to talk about why we need a strong, united, and organized radical left. We refer to the left in many cases when we talk about the left. Is it about the progressive left, the liberal left, the center left, all those parties and groups and organizations that that want to be detached from socialism and communism because this is the radical left that are not. It is not that voters should not see as illegible, which means that they should not become government. Nobody even asks why. I mean, people know that we are supposed to accept the official view, the stories and narratives that we are told, that the Soviet Union, the communism and socialism are a failure. They do not they do not provide for the people. They are authoritarian. They are totalitarian. They do not. So these systems are inherently bad, pernicious, and undemocratic, and they are economic failures. I mean, the list goes on and on. Okay, that's what we are supposed to believe. Is it correct, or is it just a pack of lies? It's neither one or the other, which means that there are the experiences that have that some countries have experiences in communism and socialism, or socialism experiences with communist governments or socialist governments. We need context, okay? The Soviet Union or the communist China or other countries that have this kind of experiences, they were in a historical context where the West, because of the story, because of the capitalism system and the imperialist system that they go together, have 500 years of history. It's just because the new form of organizing a society that was supposed to be a kind of evolution from capitalism. That means that socialism would represent an evolution of a societal and civilizational evolution, but it could not be accepted by the people that through these 5 centuries of accumulation of wealth and power and the enclosure of the commons, they would do whatever they could do to eliminate this threat, because the problem is not even capitalism in the sense as an economic system or a market system, which is not the same thing. A market economy is not exactly a capitalist economy. You can have a market economy and you don't need necessarily to have a capitalist system, because the capitalist system is basically about a legal system that allows the accumulation of wealth and the privatization of everything. Okay, that's the part, that's the primacy of private property over public ownership, the demonization of the state, or we can have fascism, which is again is the extreme form of capitalism. That's why in Italy it was called corporatism. It was the merging of private wealth with the state power. Why fascism is not the same thing as state capitalism? Like, for example, that you can have a capitalist system, which means in a capitalist economy that is controlled, like in China, that the Communist Party has the control of a capitalist economy and doesn't allow the private sector to control the state monopolies, the natural monopoly state monopolies, which means that there are infrastructure. Now the banking system, the money issuance, okay, the currency issuance, and many other sectors, energy sectors and many other sectors that should never be controlled and monopolized by private entities, by private corporations and families and groups. Why? Because when we allow it to happen, these people and these families and these groups gain political power to become themselves the owners of the state. Then the state is never any more public and for the public well-being. And by the public well-being, I mean the nation. The nation is all of us. Okay? The state is all of us. The country is the territory. So the state is the institutions and the laws to run, that have a government that are supposed to manage the interests of the state and the nation. But if we allow the private wealthy people, which means a very small percentage of the population, which means that maybe that's 0.1%. There are more wealthy people, okay? In a country like America, we can have 10% of the population. They are very well off. Okay, they have good lives. They have portfolios and all that stuff. Then you have the 1% which are pretty wealthy. But the ones that really matter are the 0.1%. The real ones that control huge amounts of wealth and have monopolies. Because, again, I'm going to repeat it again, the capitalist class, the oligarchs and plutocrats, they hate competition. Their game is not about competition. Their game is to rig the rules that would protect fair competition. They rig those rules in their favor to allow them to concentrate power in their hands and the wealth in their hands. They can then dictate the commands. This is not conspiracy theories. This is why we cannot buy into the right, the radical right, the far right, the fascistic right, or even because this is not about conservative values. I have nothing against conservative values. They are legitimate. They are because people should have that freedom to defend values, societal values, and moral values that they find they feel more they identify with. That's not about that. That's the same thing of the left, that I don't care if what do people believe or feel about gender issues and all that. This is a private. These things matter, okay? If you are pro-life or if you are pro-abortion, both sides are right, and both sides can have moral, can have moral strong arguments to defend their positions. So in these matters, we need to find solutions, legal solutions that accommodate both sides, which means that the people cannot go into extremes. They should not be allowed to divide people or fracture society along those lines. Because we can protect the people that want to have an abortion under certain regulations and rules, and we can protect the people that can have that are against it, which means that they do not, but it's for themselves. The problem here is not to make others do what you believe and you feel that's right or wrong. Of course, there is a strong argument that an abortion is this is a side subject, okay, just a little diversion. It is a strong issue, okay, and others issue about all these gender identifications are strong. This can really become create emotional friction and culture wars we find ourselves in. A democratic society has to be pluralistic, and that's to allow diversity. That's so we cannot impose a single rule for everybody, a single paradigm for everybody. This is about the individual freedoms. That's nothing to do with the deep discussion of how a society should organize its economy and the social structure, and how do we need to organize it in order to be really fair, okay, and people and the citizenry not be used as tools or as peons to be exploited and to that their lives do not all their lives are more or less about to be subservient to others, through a job or through rules and regulations that would not really allow us to jump from the spinning wheel. I mean, or because we need to grow. If you have an economy where you either grow or die, because if you stagnation, we don't talk about a steady state or an economy, a sufficiency of economy. We call about a steady state, but a dynamic steady state, okay? Where we can have mechanisms to control the economy, not to produce too much or too less. And the economy is focused primarily in satisfying the people's needs, not the people's whims, okay, or desires. It's not because we cannot have a culture that is based on perpetual growth, and we all accept we are kind of a collective agreement, kind of collective that we are supposed to grow or die. We cannot stagnate. So either if you are a small business or if you are an employee or if you have a career, you are required to be in permanent competition. It doesn't matter how old you are, and this has a this aspect of group, this generational aspect of the equation is very important, because if we are young, I do understand that we are more competitive. That's part of life. But if you are an older person, you are in your 40s and 50s and 60s, you probably become less interested in competition, because you acquire a different understanding of life through experience, through the process that there is more than competition. The competition to be better than others, to be the winner. By the way, this is in my opinion pretty wrong, that we have this idea of the winner takes it all. You can see it everywhere, sometimes ignoring the work of others. In science, it happens in science. You just have to read history of science or history of anything, and then you find out that behind the one that takes the crown, the laurel, what's the name of it? You know what I mean. There are always people. There are always people. They are in the same path, and then we make it a race, and the one that apparently comes in first place is the winner. So we compare everything with a running I mean, we just have this mentality, this underneath, this is the operating system. This is how we understand reality, through these ideas that are profoundly wrong, because they do not picture the reality. They are a particular frame to serve, and that's the point where I always try to emphasize the frames that are the way things are framed, the way the reality is framed, the way all these events and everything is framed, is not to give us a factual picture of reality. Is primarily to give us a frame that with a narrative that will influence our perception. But why do we need that? We do not need to have a unified, or we should not have a unified perspective, or only one perspective. We should not have a unidimensional man, not a unidimensional vision of the world. But we need rules. That's why this is important. We need to have diversity, but we also need diversity of perspective. We need to have free speech. We need to be a free movement, and all of that is important. But we need also to understand that there are rules, values, and principles that need to be in place, that is part of the structure where we function. Okay? The societal structure, institutional structure, the legal framework, and the economic system needs to be built with values. I mean, in pillars. It's to be founded in pillars that we should really scrutinize and not allowed to be changed, especially through law, because otherwise special interests, groups that have more influence in the political process than others, they will always have the upper end, and they will always resort to manipulation, to perception manipulation, through narratives and reality framing, in order to manipulate us to manufacture consent. So this is why when we have that's why the center left now doesn't, and the liberals of course, but the center left that should represent the center left, I mean the progressive left, the liberal left, all those parties that we believe should be the Greens, for example, should be the social democratic parties, and I mean all these group that we we see as center left, we perceive as center left, they do not defend, or because this is a process. Nothing, a political party or any other thing is not something static. There is people coming and people going, okay? So the political parties are changed like other things. There are trends. And the trends that we have been witnessing for at least 4 decades or more, it has been all the parties going right to the right, okay, which means that the parties that used to be leaning to the left in terms of values and policies, like the social democratic parties or the parties like in France or Portugal or Spain, the Socialist Party in Portugal and France, and the PSOE in Spain, OE in Spain. There were parties that we could say they were opposing the communists and the radical left, but at least they were a lot for political left policies, for the left policies, supporting left policies in general. And all these parties are now more to the right, because they became colonized. Their ranks became colonized by neoliberals, because everybody, the new generation, just goes through universities. They have been influenced by this new paradigm of understanding reality, and this neoliberal views of the world, the primacy of the financial capitals, the free market fundamentalism, the privatization of everything, because whatever is state-owned is bad. State is bad, state needs to shrink. We need to cut. You see the euphemism, the metaphor, that you said you cut the fat of the state, because the state is too fatty, so we need to cut it. Inefficiency, we talk about inefficiency of the state. Does it mean that that's not true? Of course, there is a lot of inefficiency, but they don't talk about there is a lot of inefficiency too in the private sector. There's a lot of rubbish about the myth of entrepreneurship and efficiency. Most of the efficiency comes from the support of the state. Without the support of the state, the many private companies would never be able to survive. But that's the point. Is not the truth. The point is the perception management. That's how we perceive things. That's not about the facts and the truth. So that's we are now in the left. People don't even know anymore what being left means. I mean, that's not like that exactly, but there is too much division, the small parties and what the radical left, which means to me what I would call radical left, is the left. I mean, I don't care if they call themselves communists, socialists, eco-socialists, or whatever they want to call them. That's not the point for me. The point is the values. The point is what kind of economy, the point of kind of social structure, and how do we organize our societies and our economies, and what kind of civilization do we want. And we need, and that's the point, that we need to be radical, because moderates right now don't have solutions. Moderates are just enabling the liberals to get away with their policies and just to be hated by more and more people because they don't deliver anything, that's they don't deliver anything that really to solve the problems, but they are doing the bidding for the fascists, for the fascism. Because the more, as Clara Mattei wrote the book The Capital Order, how austerity paves the way to fascism, and that is correct, because what the left, the fake left, these political parties that so many right-wing people like to call radical left, they call them communists, and they say they call them extreme left. I mean, it is absurd, but it doesn't matter, because the reality is these parties, it is the Green Party in Germany, it is the liberals, it is the SPD, it is the Christian Democrats, all these people that are open the space, that are paving the way to the fascist right. I don't know if the AfD in Germany is fascistic or not. But the point is not that, it's the trend. We are creating a trend that is making it more and more acceptable to give space, to vote, to support far-right groups, populist, nationalist, fascistic, because they seem to offer the solutions that the people do not see anywhere else. And where is the left? Why people do not see and do not understand that we need a strong radical left, a strong, united and organized radical left, especially in the European Union, because the European Union is an authoritarian, and it's becoming a totalitarian state without being a federation, which even gives them almost more power. If they were they will be a federation. This is unacceptable, but we need also to. That's why people need to understand. Why do we hate so much the radical left. That's the radical left, the radical thought, the radical why do we think and believe that the radical left, because the radical left now is is kind of playing the role, should play the role of the left of 4 decades ago, for example. Because that's exactly what the far right is playing now. But somehow, and people do not understand that they are being manipulated to believe that the far left, or I prefer radical left. Why I prefer radical left? Because radical comes from roots, and what we need is to understand the roots of the problems. Otherwise, we always get the wrong diagnosis, and then that's how we fall so easily for demagogues. That's why it's so easy for them, because demagoguery works especially when we do not train ourselves in critical thinking, in spotting logical fallacies, and because we sometimes believe too easily that we can spot the contradictions and the fakery, and we do not understand that most of the time we identify with speeches through emotional bonds and cultural identification through our own biases, more than facts or truth. We all work like that. Even the ones among us that try hard to have a critical analysis, we all have biases and are influenced by prejudices. That's something I know for sure. But we need to try. That's why life is a process. It is not about knowing something. It's about understanding. I had from long ago, sometimes I remember it, was that a thing that I'm going to say it now because it used to be very important to me. I always thought that, okay, we need information to acquire knowledge, all right? And knowledge will help us to get to understand. And over this process and experience and sorting things out, we might acquire some wisdom. So this is a process, and the wisdom, if we can call it that, is the refinement process by which we acquire not the truth, but we acquire intellectual tools and cognitive tools to have an understanding of reality that is more balanced and holistic. But there's still a process. There is still not the thing. Is not. It needs. That's why the principle, the The scientific rule is to question, is not just to stay stuck in some dogmatic, even that dogma is supposed to be based on facts. It can become a dogma if you do not want to, if you find some inconsistencies, what you need to do is to do the research in order to identify where they come from, or if they matter or not. And this is a principle and a rule that we need to train in ourselves, every single one of us. Not experts. That's another problem. We always think that we need to depend on experts to tell us. Depend on experts and authorities and leaders and savants and and gurus and saints, and I mean, you just kind of think that we need to depend on them to tell us the truth. No, we do our research with the help of them. That's what we do with each other. This is a point I always make, because this to me is, if we don't understand it, we don't get it. We should stop talking about freedom and democracy. If you do not get this point, that you think you can have democracy and freedom by being always dependent on experts and authorities and pundits and celebrities and people from the ivory towers to tell you what to think, what the reality is, who you are, what you should buy. And everything else. Sometimes you do it without even being aware that's what you are doing, because you think this is just a choice, because you are picking A from B, but you are just picking between Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Okay, you are not. That's your choice. No, your choice is to think by yourself. Is if you should even be interested in wasting your your life, because time is life, with speculating about if you should pick Coca or Pepsi, or you should just let them go. Don't waste your time with that. This is why we need to understand where are the radical is. Just why I think we need, because there is a huge difference between the values and principles about political economy, about how to organize a society, about freedoms and rights, and the agency that divide the radical left from the extreme or far right, because the far right doesn't want to change the system, just believes that the capitalist system and the ownership system and the limitless accumulation of wealth and the primacy of private ownership and all that is good for us. As if we all play at that's the point. It's not because we should be against or for the right of owning private property. The problem with the private property and the accumulation of wealth, it's essentially because by being limitless, they allow a few people, and most of the time really not good people that they do whatever they need to do in order to become wealthy. And then when they become wealthy, they need whatever they need to do in order to become super wealthy. Okay? Because what they want is power and control. The wealth is just a tool. Okay? So that's why there is a radical difference. There is a fracture between the left values, and I'm not talking about any party in special. I'm not talking about communism or socialism or Marxism or Trotskyism or or Maoism or no. That's not the point. That's why I would like to emphasize the need for radical values and principles that should be clear for us all, that are required in order that we can build a radical left, united and organized left that is needed to counterbalance the overwhelming power of all the rest of the political spectrum and community, from the liberals, the center left, the center right, and to the radical and fascistic right. They all believe in the same system, which is an unsustainable system that will drive us over the cliff. That will drive humanity over the cliff into madness. Because I think I believe that we are going to just become mad. I mean, if we allow mad people to control the steering wheel of our societies and civilization, what do you expect? Do you expect the Peter Thiels of this world and the Elon Musk of this world to build a sane future? Do you think these guys, and many others of course, are the ones you have been waiting for to solve your problems? Is it reasonable that you do not question it? I mean, I do not like to discuss people. I just give people as examples. Because I think we need to discuss ideas, systems, projects, paradigms, patterns. We need to discuss the topics and points that allow us to understand the system we have, and what kind of system do you need to discuss and debate in order to be able to build a sane, ecological, holistic civilization, not just a true paradigm shift, not just a fake ecological civilization that is basically based, which is not ecological at all, because it doesn't respect the boundaries of the planet, because it's just about green capitalism. What is green capitalism? Green capitalism is the continuation of an entropy economy, not a sufficiency economy, not an economy. It is just for the growth of more and more energy for less and less. It is, if you do some research about how they want to produce, how does the European Union want to produce green and blue hydrogen by with the so-called green energy, renewable energy produced in North Africa. Okay, in some countries in North Africa, which I don't know exactly. I right now I cannot remember where. To do your research by using resources and to produce supposedly an energy that is renewable. The energy might be renewable, but the systems, the technology that is required to produce it, and the cables, the copper and other minerals that are required to produce the machines, and all the rest that is needed to make the system work, is not renewable. We just need more and more resources to get less and less energy. You know, like it's like the same. If we have the oil. This is just another example. The oil from Saudi Arabia. I mean, probably you have one. I'm not sure right now. I'm just going to give an example. Maybe you need 1 barrel of oil to produce 25 barrels of oil. Okay, we just have to check it. I'm not sure, but I think it's maybe even more. Which just the net energy that you get out of the process. You go to the tar sands in Alberta, and then what you get is 5 barrels of oil out of 1 barrel of energy spent to produce them. You see the difference? And you can go to the fracking and the shale oil or the shale gas and other, which means that we need more and more. That's why it is we are always this is an economy based on entropy. We need more and more and more energy to spend more and more and more energy to get less and less and less, because we are wasting the energy. We need to spend the energy for the purpose just to harness more energy. And they call about efficiency. And these people tell us that this is about efficiency. This is how the technophysicism myth just poisons our minds if we do not understand it. This is this is not about being against. I know we live in a very complex societal system. We have a global civilization. That is, the people that talk about the end of globalization, they just don't know what they are talking about. We are witnessing the end or the pushback against globalism, which was the idea of the Americans to have not a global government, but to dictate the global governance. That's what it's called. It was called unipolarism and hegemony. And now what we are witnessing is globalization, a multipolar globalization. But globalization is still existing. The commerce, the international commerce is not, the international trade is not going to end. Because there is too much interdependency between countries and between blocks. So this is just not, that's why we need a global international system that works for everybody, that is not based on imperialism principles, that's not based in the great power competition that you can look to understand what it means to John Mersheimer, I think it's like that. That's how. Which we do not need. The peoples of the world do not need to follow or allow their governments to follow this idea that great powers will always compete for control. This cannot, because this is about our survival, and that's why the role. This is not about. That's why one of the reasons why the populist and nationalist right is wrong. First, because they are just using these arguments, these populist and nationalist arguments, for political purposes. They know they don't want to end international trade. They know that they depend. That's why Mr. Orban does have a lot of deals with China. So they know this, that this interdependency exists. So whatever the nationalism is more about cultural and okay, it's about there is always some sovereignty, but sovereignty comes. The basis of sovereignty is also about controlling the issuance of our own money, which we lost. We gave it away to a central bank located in Frankfurt. What does it tell you? What does it tell you? That the power is in Frankfurt, is in the axis between Frankfurt and Brussels, and it's in Brussels because NATO, the headquarters of NATO, are in Brussels. This is not coincidence, okay? My point is that the radical left, that's why the radical left is positioned or must position itself through grassroots organizations, through movements, through whatever. Whatever it can be, it can help to make people awake, to make the working class, to make the peasantry, to make the citizens of the base of the social pyramid that the right-wing, far-right, populist, nationalist, fascistic right does not have our best interests at heart. They just want. They might have some policies in mind that I don't. There are some policies and some views that I agree with, but they do not want to go to the roots of the problems. That's why they deflect it. they scapegoat it with the immigration. The immigrants are the problem. No, the trans people are the problem. All that, which I agree. There are issues with that. I do agree with that. I do agree with that. But do they want to dismantle Pfizer? Do they want to dismantle Monsanto? Do they want to dismantle all the mega corporations and mega bankings that are behind them? And are they against these financial markets that allow corporations like BlackRock and Blackstone and Vanguard and many others that and through the shadow banking and the market-based finance and all this, that even is not anymore about the bank, is outside the banking regulations. The normal banking is already a problem. Because again, banking should be a state monopoly. Because banking is not the industry. They are not producing anything. Okay? We might call it an industry, but it is not. They do not produce anything. They are just creating money out of nothing through credit and debt. And that's basically why we need growth. The growth needs to pay back the interests and the compound interests that are generated by the debt-based system. So, and these issues, they not only need to be, that we need to understand them in a very comprehensive way, and we need to understand also that only the radical left, and it has nothing to do again with parties, it has to do with values and principles and visions, world visions, and visions of a political economy that works for us, the people, and works for the earth systems. Because it is not news for anybody. We live in a limitless growth economy, in a finite world. What's going to give in? What's going to be broken? It's what we are doing. I always feel a little bit, people talk about China and the technological marvels that China is achieving. I mean, I want China to be, because since we are not able to, in ourselves, I mean, the Europeans, the Americans, the Canadians, the Australians, and others that are aligned with the West, with NATO, that are not able to understand that should be upon us to defeat this system and collaborate with the rest of the world. That's why we need the radical left, because it should be upon us to defeat this system and becoming and cope and start to cooperate with the multipolar world for the creation of a new global order, an international order that exactly serves the purpose of the real economy, and not the financial economy, not the rentier economy, not the fire sector, finance, insurance and real estate, because this is a parasitic economy that are destroying our economy, especially American and Britain, for example. But that we could create a completely different order, much more balanced and based on cooperation. But for as long as we do not do it by ourselves, because we are so propagandized, the Americans, the Europeans are so propagandized, the Canadians and the Australians, that we do not understand that the evil is at our doorsteps. That is the evil. We elect them. Evil is the legacy media. The evil is the capitalist system that is preying on us. But we still, under the fetish, under the spell of Tina. There is no alternative. There is no alternative. And that's why we are not able to have a different understanding of the problem, but that it should be upon us. And since we are not able to do it, China and Russia and in Iran and other countries are the ones that are doing our beating. That is why China is very important, is a very important piece in the puzzle, in the geopolitical puzzle, because together with Russia and other countries of the axis of resistance, they are the ones that are helping us to defeat a parasitic system. We need to do our part in order to avoid a third world war, and that is and to create a new world order. New world order is necessary, and that's why the united, organized radical left is needed, because it can be the political force that will help us to create a new world order that will be good for us and good for the planet. But we just need to understand that we need to have political agency. It's again, the point is not only, it's about grassroots organizations, movements, international movements and organizations. It's not only about voting in people that claim to defend our blah blah blah. That's not how it works. We need to acquire political agency. We have none. We just have managed democracies. That's our reality. So this is all for today. Thank you for listening. I will be back soon.